Thank you for listening to Season 10, Episode 2, Changing Your Stars. And we are joined by Christine Ahanotu, our producer. This is a special episode for us to talk about because tell me and tell everyone about your connection to Italy.
Well, my connection to Italy, we found this story because they bought the palazzo, and I heard about it in the news, and I said, that's a really interesting story. Why didn't they dig in more to the fact that she's living with her ex-husband? But yeah, for me, I live in Italy like half the year with my husband, and I just thought...
You say that like that's like an easy thing. I live in Italy half the year with my husband. Like, we don't have to get into everything, but just a little bit of hint, because like how your love story came about and how you got to Italy. Just like the quickest version.
Okay, the quick version?
Yeah.
Because it's quite the story. We met in like 2017 in LA. Fast forward 2 years, and he flew me out to Verona in Italy on Valentine's Day. Get this, 2020. So I got to Italy.
So February 2020.
He flies me out. I'm supposed to stay for 2 weeks, and just to see if this thing with this guy was going to work. And after a week, COVID hit Italy. Italy shut down, and we were stuck together in a house on the southern coast of Puglia for 3 months. And now we're married.
Okay, but so you do you were married to someone who was
European. Yeah.
And so you're sometimes there, sometimes here.
Yes.
Which means that sometimes when you're producing the podcast, you're like, it's night and it's day for me.
Yeah, sometimes we're on a interview and I'm in Italy.
Yeah, which is very romantic. But you're from Boston, where I live. So like, I think we all romanticize Italy because it's romantic. So what is it like to actually like live in a place that the world thinks is this like movie place? Like somebody once told me, as soon as you pay an electric bill somewhere,
that one,
it's you might as well be home. Like you have. So is that how you felt once you spent more time there?
When we found this story, I was like, if we're gonna do a season and it's love letters, and it's my first season with love letters, I was like, we got to do one in Italy, right? Italy is this country of love, and so the thing about it is, I was really interested to see if it did change her, because for me, yes, Italy is this romantic place, but like exactly what you said is when you live there, everything gets lost on you eventually. Right? Like the amazing frescoes and the, Da Vinci's, and it just becomes your way to the supermarket, which sounds crazy. But Kelly's story is just so remarkable because she did decide to go later in life, and, she brought her ex-husband with her. So I found my husband in Europe and she brought hers with her. I think it's, there's something to be said about Italy there.
There's something also about, yes, Italy is incredibly special and romantic, but also leaving your hometown allows you to change and that you escape this like notion of who you are. Like I'm from Maryland, right? So I think if I had not left Maryland, I'd be Maryland Meredith forever, right? Yep. And like there was something about moving to Boston, which now is so many years ago, where I was like, I'm a whole new me. It's like going to summer camp and no one knows whether you're popular or not, right? And for Kelly, it's like you go to Italy and you get to be this entirely new thing. But there is like a statute of limitations on that, right? Like eventually it wears off.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I've lived in a lot of different places. I was born in Boston. I went to school in New York. I was in LA, and now I'm in Europe half the time. And I think there is an element in every new place you go of reinventing yourself. And for a while, it feels very free. And I think you might have, I don't know if you said this in the episode or you've said it to me when we were recording the season, is like wherever you go, there you are. And your own stuff will catch up with you. So, I know that Kelly's been there for 3 or 4 years. So let's check back in with them in 10 years and see if they're still living happily in the palazzo.
Kelly was a really unique guest because so often when you tell someone's story, they're the hero, right? They're always the hero. We don't always hear the other side from exes, right? We try to be very respectful to them. But in this case, like Kelly was very forthcoming about what she wants, how she might have made things difficult for people around her. Like, she talked about how in Australia there's that tall poppy, syndrome, right? Like everybody has to be the same, right? But she really talks about how like she might not have been everybody's cup of tea. And she does that without apology. And she doesn't always like come off as someone who's reading the room. And I kind of loved that. I mean, I love an episode where someone doesn't seem perfect all the time. And, you know, Kelly basically says everybody in Australia can like leave her alone. She doesn't want any of it. She just wants Italy. So like, I don't know. I wondered what you thought about that. Like just the honesty of being whoever you are, even if it seems difficult to other people.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. It makes you wonder if, was it the move of her leaving to Italy, or was it just her realizing, like, fully embracing that, like, yeah, a lot of people don't like me or don't get on with what Kelly's putting out, and that's fine, and I'm not going to change myself. You know, I thought she was so charming. You know, she's definitely a character. She has so much personality, and yeah, I mean, all the power to her for, you know, changing her stars.
You know, go back and forth between Italy and here. Do you feel like you're different there versus here? Like, do you have like a persona?
Absolutely.
Like, do you say like, yeah? Do you?
I'm absolutely a different person. I'm not fundamentally different. I'm still Christine. My fundamental truth's the same, but I am more elegant. I dress much nicer.
Well, in Boston, you can like wear pajamas to a
Well, in Boston,
fancy
you know, it's
restaurant.
been funny. So the first couple of years, it was always like when I'm in Europe or when I'm in Italy, it's like I had to try, especially like from New England. Like we're not necessarily like fashionistas. We kind of just dress for comfort.
Yes.
So like there's been a big learning curve because my husband is like very fashionable. But I was always like putting on the Italian Christine and then like coming back and putting on the American Christine. And now it's all the same, which is really interesting. Like this most recent trip, which I just got back from, you know, a couple days ago, I bring it with me. Like when I'm here, even when I was getting dressed today, I was like my styles become a little more European. And like when I'm there, like my Americanism comes out a bit more. And it's, you know, I think with time that happens. So yeah, absolutely. I think you're different people in different places. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I don't think it makes you, you know, you're influenced by the environment.
We had an episode years ago in our second season called Single Live Here. And it was basically about how everybody I knew in New York thought they'd be more likely to find love if they lived in Boston. They were like, it's smaller there, it's easier, New York is too big. Meanwhile, all the Boston people were like, if I lived in New York, I would not be single because there'd be so many options. And I've had that like back in the day thoughts about like, oh, well, if I lived in a small town where I like went to the local coffee shop, like things would be like, we had these fantasies about other geographic locations, right? And what that episode taught me, and I highly recommend people listen to it because the guest is a woman named Obehi who's a writer, and she's from Boston, goes to New York, eventually goes to LA. Like what she realizes is that like the place where she needs to be is wherever she feels like she's most comfortable with herself. And that's like hard to figure out where it is because most of us don't get to like go everywhere. We don't get to figure out if Italy is the spot, right? Yeah. And I ask myself, is like Boston where I feel like the main character of my own story? Sure, I've lived here a long time, but like
you are the main character, Meredith.
I guess, but I don't know. Like I wonder if one of these places for you, not to make you choose, but like feels more like, oh, here is where I am essentially me, and if that can be what changes a person too, like feeling like you truly can be yourself. Because I don't think Obehi, despite being from here, ever felt like this is where I shine. Like she gets to New York and she's like, I'm like a rom-com character.
You know, it's funny. I feel like Boston is the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
I know. I'm not just saying that because we're in Boston or
yeah.
I was gone for a while and I've lived in different places and I love Europe and love Italy. We also spend time in Austria because my husband's Austrian. But yeah, when I'm in New England, I just feel, yeah, I feel home. I feel good. And it's funny now, my husband loves it here too. We just moved back, you know, and so it's, yeah, it's really special. I mean, it's home.
All right. So we are also an advice column. People write in letters. We run them anonymously. We try to help, like an old school, you know, Q&A. I have found some letters that remind me of this episode, just because they're geography based, because they bring up questions about how moving can change you. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask, like, I've already answered these letters, but I want to see what you think. And reading these letters again from the inbox made me recontextualize my advice a little bit. So anyway, hi Meredith. I'm a mid-30s woman who wants to find a long-term partner after being single for a few years and doing some work after my last breakup. I'll note I'm child-free and I don't want kids, so I don't have that pressure. I also really want to find a new job, and the search is taking longer than I'd hope. I'm looking for jobs in my current city, but also in other cities. And this person goes on to ask me, like, is there a point to dating if I know I might move and be home somewhere else?
Huh. Yes, there's a point to dating.
Like,
There's
even if
always
you're
a
like,
point. Well, what if you find your person before you move and you're like, what if I had left and the person was here?
I also have a thing.
Depends on your intent, like your motivations. Like if you are career focused and you could care less if you fall in love or find a partner, then yeah, maybe don't date. But if you are looking for a partner, I'd say keep dating. Date
But like,
everywhere.
what if you, okay, I have a theory about this, but what if you meet somebody and it like, there's also probably a fear of meeting someone too. Like you get a perfect job and it's in Cincinnati, then suddenly you're like, oh no. Like, but you're saying do it without fear. If it's a soulmate, it's a soulmate. I mean,
If it's a soulmate, it's a soulmate.
But yeah.
And I think, yeah, if it's a soulmate, it's a soulmate. And if not, that's just one of those things. Like if we think back to episode 1 with Fumi, it's like the clown. You just kind of, sometimes you just got to act like a clown. Like you date and then you realize, yeah, I got to go. My body's over there now.
I also have a theory that like when people know they're leaving and it doesn't matter, they are at their hottest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like right before you graduate.
That's like
school.
married person syndrome. It's
Oh
like
my
when you're
God.
not on the market, you're like,
We had a
Yeah,
person
you're
who
in
was
love.
leaving the Globe to take a different media job. And right before she left, literally like everyone on every dating app was like, I'm in love with you. And I was like, this is what happens. You're like sending out this energy into the world. And I'm not a big sending out energy in the world person who
Oh, I
believes in
am.
that.
All
But
about
I
the
was
energy.
like, I mean, the confidence, the lack of, anyway, it's fast. So yeah, I basically said, I don't know that, I think there are a lot of the things where we're like one thing at a time. Like life will
yeah,
start
don't do
when
that.
we get
No,
to Italy. Life
no.
will start when I'm done with grad school.
you
Life
could
will
move to
start when
Seattle, you get to Seattle and you hate Seattle and then you're there for 8 months. And
Yeah,
then,
like-
and then what, you're not going to date there because you know you want to leave and come home.
Yeah. I used to
I
do
mean,
a
that
thing.
could be a real, yeah.
Yeah,
do,
I used
do
to
multiple things at once.
do multiple things at once. Okay.
Not multiple people. I mean, I'm just kidding. It's really,
Or
whatever
that.
floats your boat.
Honestly, do that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And this is validating, especially in Kelly's situation, because like she was always doing everything at once. Okay. This is a really recent letter and I loved it and it's a mess. Hi Meredith, early in the year, I, a 26-year-old woman, packed my bags and moved from the Midwest to the United Kingdom for my job. I almost immediately started dating a guy, a 24-year-old man, I met through work. He introduced me to most of his friends here, and my other friends quickly became a part of that friend group. We dated for 8 months, but as much as I loved him, I never fell in love with him. He was planning our future, and I knew he wouldn't be the one. So then this letter writer goes on to say that she decides to break up with this guy.
Okay.
The right move. But now her whole life in the UK is built around his friend group. And she's like, oh no, am I allowed to keep his friends? Like, am I allowed to pursue them and tell them I want to still be your friend? Like, he's even saying...
Is that the actual question she asked by the end?
Yeah, like she
am I allowed to
basically
pursue
says,
them?
the idea of having to make a whole new friend group seems daunting, but I don't know if it's unfair to still want to see some of the people I've met since I've made the decision to break up with him. Do I just need to cut my losses and start from scratch? One of her concerns is that he's being so gracious about the breakup that he's like, we could even still be friends, but she knows it's really painful for him.
I mean, I think there's a way to balance that. I mean, I think you can request or pursue the friends and let them know I want to stay friends. But like if you're doing an event that he's going to be at, maybe she doesn't go to that one. You know, she can still get coffees. And then if their friendships grow to be so solid and it's 4 years later and he's engaged or married or dating somebody else, at that point it doesn't matter.
I mean, my thing was like, sure. And they're always like friends on the outskirts, which maybe are a little bit less close to him. And
pursue the less close friends.
like
Not
one,
the best friend.
Not the best friend, the one on the, but
Don't
also,
sleep with any of the friends
don't sleep
in the first year.
I love that
I'm
you've added these
sorry, I
things.
just,
Like 12 months,
hey, this
all
is-
bets are off.
Yeah, this is reality.
But I also feel like you got to make some of your own friends. Like, this is why it's great to have friends that are only yours. And it sounds like she was, like, didn't have to do that work because she met him so quickly. But, like, I imagine when you go to Italy, like, have you been able to make your own people there or something? Like, even here.
Yeah, but it
like,
takes time.
It does take
Yeah,
time.
for the first like 3 years, my friends were my husband's friends.
Yeah.
You know, and if we had broken up, I would not probably have gone back to Europe. I mean, or I would have, and you know, and now you do at one point make intentional efforts to like have a friend group. And now I do. I have a couple girlfriends over there that are actually my friends, and they're just like, it feels really nice. But yeah, you have to, especially at a certain age, you know, if you want to stay in the UK, if she wants to stay in the UK, she's going to have to pursue other people for sure.
I'm so excited to get to the rest of the episodes this season. But before we go, do you want to say anything to any of the listeners of Love Letters who may like randomly be Italian? We probably don't have a lot of them, but just in case.
Grazie mille per tutto and a dopo. Ciao.
I don't know what it meant, but I loved it.